one final question. Where are you going after the game tonight?
Tonight I'm going to the Berwyn Summerfest.
Okay. Ron, one more final question before you go into your hitters meeting. Where are you going after the game tonight?
I'm going to Berwyn Summer Fair.
All right.
Come out and see us.
Fantastic. Let me ask you a final question here. Where are you going after the game tonight?
Berwyn Summer Fair.
All right. You're the fifth one.
Thank you. You still feeling all right out there? I hear you say, woo! And we love you too. Everything at you when I'm going makes me understand. There's another feeling you in my midnight confession, when I tell the world that I love you.
Welcome to our show, and we call this show
Sports,
Entertainment,
People and Places.
and we are
Rich Nye.
Jim Capsa,
And Bobby Considine.
and we've got a big show planned for you today. If I were Ed Sullivan, I would say big show. That's the way he used to say it, I think. And as a matter of fact, I had the opening of our show all planned out, and then I went and bought a newspaper this morning, and I had to change the opening because here is today's Sun-Times newspaper. This is my page one, which is the back page. I always read the newspaper backwards. I go to the sports first. And as you can see, this is Commissioner of Baseball Rob Manfred talking to, of all people, White Sox manager Tony La Russa. And I really think it's a clever headline here, Lockout or Knockout. And this was supposed to be the first week of Major League Baseball spring training, as all of you good baseball fans know. However, not only is spring training going to be delayed, right now with the talks going the way they've gone or haven't gone between the Major League Baseball owners and the Major League Baseball Players Association for a new collective bargaining agreement, we may not see any baseball this year. It's another one of those tight, you give a little bit, we'll give a little bit, but nobody's giving enough so far. Rich, what do you have to say about that? You're a former Major League Baseball pitcher.
Well, I look at it as business, and it's become, outside of the baseball sport, it's become just a huge money business. And it's all about balancing the amount of income that they see coming in and giving the players extra benefits that they're asking for. Extended contracts, being paid, I don't know, some of the other things that they get that are written into the contracts, no trade clauses and things. All these things have been added in to make it a very complex issue. It's not just a simple thing like the reserve clause used to be.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting on the players' viewpoint, coming in, and Rich knows this also, that coming in, getting ready, getting all up, and you've been training all year to come in, pitchers and catchers starting out, and then you're kind of locked out. So you have to regroup. It would be like a false start in track. You have to come back and start all over, come back and start all over. Pitching, catching comes first at spring training. And how do you mentally prepare to come back from these layoffs.
Right.
To stay in shape. Rich, any comments on that?
Well,
How do
you're
you-
both pitchers, so you ought to be able to tell us how the pitchers out there at least are feeling.
Well, once you get to this level in athletics, everybody looks at these athletes and says, these are great athletes. They're so much better physically than some of these other players. And that isn't really the thing that makes a difference in my mind. I think what really makes a difference is the mental side of the game and how they perceive it. If you are going out with confidence and you are in the bullpen warming up and you know you're facing a number one league leading team that day, if you don't go out there with confidence, you're going to have some trouble right from the start. And that's just one of the things that I see being a problem with the athlete, and that is getting that mental state. Who is going to give it to them? If you don't have it yourself, the management's not going to give it to them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because coming into spring training, you know you're putting in your dirt time, so we say. And when you're ready for the season, you're ready. I mean, you have to do long toss. You have to get acquainted with your catcher and the signals. And one catcher may not be good for you, but the next catcher is, as you've experienced. So that's the guy you want to practice with during spring training. And so you're ready when game time comes. I believe that. And you're right, Rich. Pitching is a lot of mental preparation. And without spring training being delayed, it can be a little bit iffy at best when you first step out there, for sure.
Well, Commissioner Rob Manfred has made it clear that the players are going to need, after the collective bargaining agreement is solidified and both sides agree to everything, the players are going to need at least 3 to 4 weeks to get ready. Would you people
absolutely.
agree?
Oh my
At
gosh,
least
yes.
3 or 4 weeks,
Yes,
right?
Yes, at least, yeah.
And if it doesn't happen within the next month or so, that means the season can't start until a month later than normal. Now, so far the talks haven't gotten anywhere from what I've been reading in the
Okay.
newspaper and the people I've been talking to. So it's up in the air.
Yeah,
So-
the other issue is that, practicing by yourself, throwing, like Rich was a young guy pitching in California with the weather. Pitching has to be so precise. You have to be ready. And today, and Rich mentioned about the athletes, they come into camp in shape. Now with this little bit delay, they have to re-gear themselves not only physically, but mentally, and be with the team. It's a team effort also.
That's a good point because, Andy Pafko was a good friend of mine. He was an
Absolutely.
outfielder.
Yes.
But he used to tell me that a lot of times in the old days, the guys didn't report in shape.
No, they
They
didn't.
would come in with beer bellies sometimes.
Yes, and work it out. Babe Ruth was one.
Yeah, right. And he didn't do too bad.
Well, that's why they gave him the pinstripe uniform, to make him look thinner.
Made him look thinner, huh? Well, there's not much more we can say about it at this point in time. We just have to hope for the best. We're all baseball fans here. A former major league pitcher here, a former college baseball and football player, and I try to do my best in senior baseball. So we're both crossing our fingers. But there was something nice that happened a couple of weeks ago, and this is the Sports Saturday section of the Sun-Times from about 2 weeks ago. An inside job. And this is a photo, and let me turn to page 4. They've got a better photo in here, of SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. And here it is in all of its glory. It's what is it, Bob? You got the prices down, I think. Something like an $8 billion stadium,
Well,
right?
they actually started off 2016, and it ended up costing them, open up in 2021, actually $5.5 billion.
Oh, I was off $3 billion.
Was
Yeah.
the
Pittance.
dollars? Well,
Pocket
at that
change.
point, what's the difference?
right.
But the stadium, it's very interesting. The stadium, the way they built it. But of course, and Rich is familiar. Just outside L.A., holds 70,000.
Right, and they had a full stadium, too.
and-
Nobody was wearing masks either.
No, and it can expand to 100,000 actually, with all the goodies that go with it. They have a lake there with a waterfall.
It's
but
beautiful.
The interesting part about that stadium, if we compare that maybe with Soldiers Field, the field in Inglewood, it's open on the sides.
Yeah. So you get a breeze going
You
through
get a
there.
breeze going through,
Yeah.
and the top of the dome of the field actually is a TV screen.
I read that.
So the people coming into the
LA
airport
airport, yeah.
can look down and they can watch they were watching the game as they were flying in. And they've got a running track and it's restaurants and skyboxes and you name it. It was very well, but 5.5 billion.
Yeah. Well, I brought that up because that's where the Super Bowl was held this year. Super Bowl number 56, the Rams over the Bengals, 23-20. One of the most exciting Super Bowl games I've seen. It went down to the last minute and a half.
It was great.
Did you watch the game? You must have.
I did not.
You
because
didn't?
I do not get Sports Channel on my. I'm out in the country and my wireless is useless.
Well, maybe
So-
Bob taped it. Did you
Yeah.
tape it?
Well, I watched it. I watched it, and that last drive down the field, it was spectacular.
It was, yeah.
And the playoffs too, guys. The playoffs were fantastic. It was a great way
Right.
to end the NFL season this year.
And of
Just
course,
spectacular.
you know why I brought this up, because the Chicago Bears viewers, if you haven't been keeping up in the newspapers or watching your sports on TV, the Chicago Bears have actually signed an agreement to purchase, I think it's a 329-acre site where the Arlington Race Park was, Arlington Park in Arlington Heights, Illinois. And they're going to close escrow sometime this year.
Absolutely.
That means that the Bears have definite plans to build a stadium there. Of course, the mayor of Chicago now is scuttling, scurrying around trying to make a deal to offer to the Bears to improve Soldier Field. In my humble opinion, I'd like to see him build a stadium in Arlington Heights. What about you, Rich?
Well, you know, I love the history. I love the fact that Soldier Field's been used for so many years, and it's got a great ambiance to it. But they're looking at this again as a money thing. And what can I do to generate money? I need a larger, guaranteed
Absolutely.
attendance availability. I think it was 70,000 was a minimum.
Minimum, right.
And I don't think they can put 70,000 in Soldier
No, they
Field.
can't.
So, saying you can't improve it. You can't add more to the structure because the structure's fallen apart because of age. Putting the stadium it's a plus. They say, oh, it's going to bring revenues to the state, revenues to the area. And I looked at that and I looked at some of the negatives to it. And the negatives I'm thinking is, yeah, but football is only played 8-10 weekends a year.
Right.
Good
And that's
point.
where you're going to generate money for, sales and things. So unless you make a facility very much like the one in LA, which has availability to have stores, shops,
Right.
rental spaces, restaurants in there that are open 24/7 around the year,
Yeah.
I don't see
Plus,
how it
plus
can
you're
be
talking about special
generated.
events like concerts.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so
absolutely.
forth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Bob, you were mentioning when I was talking to you about this that you would like to see him make a stadium with a roof, an all-season stadium.
I think it has to be an encapsulated field.
absolutely.
I'm not so sure that they could revamp Soldiers Field to be that.
That'd be a major project.
Now, when you're building a field and doing all the research on this thing, location, like with anything, it seems like the old racetrack up in Arlington Heights seems to be a perfect location. Reason is accessibility.
Yeah,
Parking.
right off the freeway,
At Soldiers Field, because of the lake, your parking is very limited. You can only park on one side,
Yeah.
obviously, and the acreage they have up there is great. I think an encapsulated field would be the way to go, not only for the NFL, for the Bears, but also we know, and Rich knows for sure, coming here to Chicago after spring training, there's a lot of days that you may need to practice in where
Exactly.
you need long toss, you
Yeah.
need to sprint, you need the trainers to get out there and work on the pitchers and outfielders. What better place than a beautiful enclosed football stadium?
So my vote is for the Bears to build a stadium there, and I'd like to see it enclosed, and I think that's what you'd
I
like.
I think it's a plus.
And I think Rich
it's
is
a
on the
plus.
fence.
Well, no, I don't mind that as long as they are looking at ways to utilize that stadium every 12 months a year.
Right.
Because it's not going to get revenues to the local public. It's not going to improve. And who's going to pay for this? Where's the money coming from? It's
Right.
not just coming from the Bears. It's coming
Yeah.
from taxes and the state. And so there's got to be,
Sponsors.
somehow there's got to be some benefits down the road that are saying this is a good investment, in other
Sure,
words.
and the NFL also has very, very strict guidelines on how these stadiums have to be built, and they
Right,
do a whole
right.
traffic survey and the whole gamut of things for this
And of course,
to
the
come to view.
administration, the local administration in Arlington Heights is going to hear from the residents of the area too.
Well, of course.
Some of them will like it, others say no way.
Right.
You know, so
Well, they're going to have to retool a lot of the roads going
Yeah.
in there, but the location is it's a decent location for a stadium. If you're going to go into the suburbs from the city of Chicago, you can still access the city if you want to go
Yeah,
downtown
right.
see a play, but to be out there, parking is always big, and it has to be. And Rich said again, family friendly. It
Yeah.
has to be family. You want to pull up there, have a nice place to park, walk in, grab something to eat, and enjoy. And to have a stadium that's temperature controlled here in Chicago is golden. So to bring up, you need a stadium that is family friendly, so you can go in and you can park your car, easy walk to the stadium. There's nothing like going to Soldiers Field, wintertime, all bundled up, going out to just enjoy yourself and all that. But I think maybe it's time for an upgrade in the stadium.
for an indoor stadium.
Indoor
Yeah.
sta- in Chicago.
I think we're the majority rules on that one.
Well, if you think about the location also, how many of the attendees at a football game, if it's just a league game, yes, it's local. If it's a Super Bowl, and again, if they build a stadium that is like the one in LA, then within a 4-year period, they're guaranteed a Super
They are,
Bowl.
yeah.
So,
Good point. Good
so
point.
that is so easy to get to from the airport for anybody
Oh,
coming
yeah,
from out of
that's
town.
right.
So that's
Great
excellent.
location.
Right.
Great location.
Okay, that's enough of that subject. And I have to tell you, folks, that we have revised our schedule for today, and we are going to show you 2 quick interviews. Well, one is quick, and the other is medium length. But I thought we'd show you an interview I did a little over 20 years ago with one of the most favorite players, baseball players in Chicago, Moose Skowron, who actually was a Chicago boy. He went to Weber High School, and he played for both the Yankees and the White Sox and a couple other teams for just a short while. But he was a White Sox favorite, and then after he retired from baseball, he was part of the ambassadors of the White Sox. That's coming up first, and that's going to be followed by Mike Veeck, son of Bill Veeck. Veeck as in wreck. And I don't think I need to say too much about Bill Veeck because he was once a White Sox owner at one time. And Mike is actually part owner of 7 minor league teams. Mike Veeck has an interesting partner. He's got a couple of businesses of his own. He and his wife own parts of 7 minor league baseball teams. But in addition to that, his partner in a couple of other ventures is famous TV and film comedian Bill Murray. So that's coming up in the next second half of our show. But right now, we're going to take it away to our interview from 20-some years ago with Moose Skowron, followed by Mike Veeck.
Hello again and welcome to the Pro Sport Report. I'm Jim Capsa, and this handsome guy sitting next to me is a real treat for you baseball fans on today's show. It's Bill Skowron. Moose, thanks for being on our show.
Jimmy, I'm sorry it took so long, but you know I've been tied up for the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it's nice to be with you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to get you on the show anytime. Moose Skowron, as many of you fans know, is an all-time great New York Yankee. He played for the Chicago White Sox, and he did a tremendous job for the White Sox. Even played for the Dodgers one year, right?
That's right.
Against the Yankees in the '63 World Series.
Yeah, I get traded in 1962 during the winter and get traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers. We beat the Yankees 4 in a row in '63, and I hit .385 against my former teammates. And as it turned out, after the ball game, Mickey Mantle heard that I said that I'd rather been on a loser when a guy was interviewing me, and Mickey never forgot that. Until this day, I felt the same way because I thought the Dodgers gave me a little hard time there for the year I was there, but I was glad to get back to the American League, Jim.
Now, when you say that you thought they gave you a little bit of a hard time, they didn't pay you what you thought you should be getting? Or
No, it wasn't. No, Jimmy, it wasn't the money. It's just that I was out with Drysdale and Koufax and Ron Peronowski, and we had dinner together, and I heard Johnny Padre say that I was committed to the Washington Senators in June.
Oh, yeah?
And now I go home, I tell Dick Trzewiski, my roommate, I says, Dick, I says, you know, this isn't right. I said, I just found out I've been traded. He said, how do you know that? I said, well, you know, Johnny Padres is close to Buzzy Bavasi, and they already committed to me in June. After the World Series, Buzzy Bavasi calls me up. He said, Moose, we're trying to get out of this deal.
Oh, really?
And I went through a lot. I shouldn't even mention this stuff, but it's passe.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just the idea, it made me angry.
But that must have been something playing against your real buddies in that World Series. Of course, you had to do your best because that's the professional athlete in you, and you did your best. You killed them.
Well, the thing is, Sandy Koufax struck out 15 Yankees the first game we played, and then Drysdale and Johnny Padres, and we used Ron Peronowski. It was the only relief pitcher we had.
Moose, I'm glad you could make it to the Pro
Jimmy,
Sport
thank
Report.
you. I know it's been a long time. We made
Well, maybe we'll have you on again around World Series time.
That's fine with
How's
me.
that sound?
That's fine.
That's all the time we've got on the Pro Sport Report for today. For Bill Moose Skowron, I'm Jim Capsa. We'll see you next time. Have a happy day.
Now, just for those of you youngsters out in the viewing audience, we want to be sure you understand that Mike's grandfather was once the president of the Chicago Cubs. Am I right? And Mike's father was the owner of several teams, and I'm going to let Mike explain all that to you rather than have me do it.
Well, I mean, he started to work, as you mentioned, for his father, who actually was president of the Cubs for the Wrigley family. And when he died, when Mr. Wrigley died, Dad hung around for a while as the Cub treasurer, and then got a chance to buy a ball club in Milwaukee in the old American Association. So he went to Milwaukee for 3 or 4 years. The war years, of course, interfered, and finally in 47 he got the chance to buy the Cleveland Indians. And in 1948, with the help of a couple of guys named Feller, for example, and
Rapid Robert.
That's right. They won a world championship. You know, all winter he tried to trade Lou Boudreau, and he couldn't unload Boudreau. All Boudreau did was become the most valuable player and manage that club. And
The youngest manager, too.
and they set an attendance record in 1948 that stood for some 40. They drew 2.6 million people, and that was really the one. It was ironic because my dad was such a Chicago guy, born in Chicago, raised, as he always hated to say, in Hinsdale, but that was the fact, you know. My mother always said he drug himself across to the wrong side of the tracks as soon as he could, which he replicated again when he bought the St. Louis Browns in 1950. So, and then the White Sox twice, probably he's best remembered for the White Sox in '59 that won a pennant and got beaten by the Dodgers in 5 games, and then came back to Chicago in 1975 when they were in danger of moving to Seattle. So he had a wonderful and very checkered career, and it was so wonderful to see you talking extensively with Roland Heeman, because of course Roland was his general manager the second pass through Chicago. And you know, 2 weeks ago we're in Cooperstown watching Roland get the Buck O'Neill Award, and you know, the two of those guys together, that's only, you know, 130, 140 years of baseball.
Talk about Mike Vick and your enterprises. Aside from the 7 minor league baseball teams, I know you have your own corporation. You're out for speaking engagements all the time. Tell us a little bit about your private endeavors.
Well, you know, I went to work in '76 for the White Sox. I spent 6 glorious years there. I subsequently worked for the Detroit Tigers for a couple of years, and the Rays, and one other, the Marlins. So, you know, I kicked around a little bit. But in order to make sure that every time I got fired I had somewhere to go, my wife said, let's buy a minor league team. And we started one in St. Paul, Minnesota, which went on to sell out for 18 straight years.
St. Paul Saints?
Yes, the St. Paul Saints. You know, had J.D. Drew and Darryl Strawberry and Jason Varitek for an hour. And from that base, we just kind of purchased a little piece of a club here and there. We have 3 affiliated clubs and a piece of 4 independents. But after I got fired by the Rays, I made a speech one day, and a guy said, that ought to be a book. And I knew he was brain dead.
So you wrote it anyway.
Well, no, you know what I said is, he goes, I think we can get money for it. And I said, I'll write it this afternoon.
You're a fast writer.
And that's what happened, really.
Fun is Good, right?
Fun is Good was born, and Fun is Good has become 4 books written about the ball clubs. I wrote one, Fun is Good. I'm working on a second one, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Saloons. We're arguing about the title, and it grew into this corporate culture. We have training videos and things that really happened by mistake because no one expected the economic climate to change so rapidly in 2008. And suddenly, employers are saying, well, if we can't pay them enough, we have to find other things to do. Let's make it fun for them. What a concept. Yeah. Be nice to people and they'll deliver a great product. So I'm a little always embarrassed by the fact that I feel so strongly coming from my mother and father, my grandfather, that fun is so important, not only in the workplace, but just in life in general. And suddenly it's timely. I don't know how that happened.
You know, you lead me right into my next question. I hear through the grapevine that one of your partners is a well-known comedian by the name of Bill Murray.
Yeah, he and I have been partners for, 20, 25 years. We have no agreements on paper. And we've had a wonderful time, and so much of the philosophy of Fun is Good has come from, the successes that Bill's had with, not just with Caddyshack and Stripes or What About Bob, but some of his later work where he's wandered across the aisle and done some dramatic roles. He, I think, epitomizes the pursuit of joy. And when you think about it, they tried, he and Brian Doyle Murray, his brother, and Harold Ramis wrote Caddyshack. They tried to get movie houses to make it. And nobody thought a movie about a gopher and a golfer would be particularly funny. Now I wonder how the genius that turned that movie down feels today. It's become part of the lexicon, Bark Like a Dog, all of the wonderful lines and references in everyday life. And so we take a lot of those movies and a lot of those lines and incorporate them into our promotions. People don't realize that Bill Murray's made 60 movies.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, it's a staggering number. He's always working, and except for Garfield, I think he's probably happy he's made most of them.
Talking about all the experts in Hollywood turning really good things down, the movie Rocky was turned down by every studio in Hollywood before Sylvester Stallone decided he was going to do it on his own. So that's the way to do it.
Yeah, there's something in all of us. Nobody ever cheered for Goliath. Hey, crush that little bum David. But every once in a while, somebody lands a blow, for all of us, the fans, and something wonderful happens.
Well, Mike, it's been a joy talking to you.
So there you have our interview with two interviews, Moose Skowron and Mike Veeck. And I got a charge out of that interview with Mike Veeck. And you can still get his book, Fun is Good. Go to Amazon.com. Talking about books, this is the book, one of my favorites of all time. And I've got a few years under my belt. But this is one of my favorite books, The Last Man on the Moon. It's the story of U.S. astronaut in the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, Captain Eugene A. Cernan, the last man to walk on the moon. And he's coming up in just a few minutes. He was our honored guest at the Chicagoland Czech American Community Center grand opening on November 14th, 2012. And we had a line of people going out the door trying to get in to see and meet Gene Cernan. And you're going to meet him on videotape in just a short while. But first, I know Rich has brought some more of his things. He's an expert wood turner now. He learned wood turning, and you those of you who saw our first show, he explained a little bit about that. And we explained a little bit about Bob Considine, who was a former firefighter for how many years, Bob?
35.
35 years. Both of these fellows have second careers, you might say. Bob, your second career, in my eyes, is acting, because
a little bit of acting.
You have had roles in the movie Babe about Babe Ruth.
Yes.
And you've had parts in 3 popular TV shows. Tell the fans real quickly about what you're doing at CineSpace.
Well, at Cinespace, I was fortunate enough to get a role as a fire chief, battalion chief on Chicago PD.
Because you were a firefighter.
In the opening scene, and it was a lot of fun. So then I became a SAG actor, and I had been for years, but then I re-upped and became a union actor. And after that, it's just kind of snowballed a little bit. I'm doing a lot of other things and had done previous things. Actually, we filmed a movie called The Last Summer at Wrigley Field where they made me one of the Chicago Cubs.
All right.
Awesome.
So I went from a Yankee uniform to finally in a Cub uniform at Wrigley Field, which was spectacular and was a lot of fun. Being down at Wrigley Field, as Rich mentioned in our last show, it's magical.
Yes,
It's magical.
absolutely.
How about that? Well, I envy you for
Oh,
doing
no.
something like that after a full career that you've already had. But let's talk to Rich again, and I see he's brought some more samples of his wood turning project.
And I did, and he's talking about me getting involved in wood turning. I've been doing it for about 15 years now, and the idea came up when my wife said, "How long are you going to continue doing your 80-hour a week as a veterinarian?" And I said, "Well, it's time to start finding something else to pique my interest." And I went down the rabbit hole with wood turning, and I now make utilitarian things like bowls. So use a bowl, like a little salad bowl, out of walnut, and a little different decoration than a standard bowl. But these are all turned on the lathe, and this is a bowl set. This is a bowl set, and these bowls are made out of cherry, and each one of them is carved out of the other. So this started as a big chunk of wood, about as big as the bottom bowl, and then you hollow out the little one and then the next size, and then you let it dry for 6 months, and then when it's dry, then you put it back on the lathe and you make the bowls. We make some artistic pieces, something that's a little bit different, adding some resin to a burl that is very rough surfaced, and this is poured into a frame, and then you shape your piece out of it. So this is wood and resin together. That's a popular thing. The last one of the vessels is another little vessel, and I may have shown this even last time. This is walnut, and it's also hollow, and all the shavings come out of that little hole. So that takes a little time to learn that technique and to create it so that you aren't making this into a light shade with a hole in the bottom or a funnel. That's also very important. The last set of things I brought just to illustrate is just some, you can make pens, useful things. The pens I chose were laser cut, so all these little pieces are colored wood that's cut on a laser to give you the shape of the animal. In this case, being an avian veterinarian, I'm doing Amazon parrots and African gray parrots and macaws. And then just puzzle pens like this, or a pen that looks like a piano table. This one has feathers, and then these light colored ones here, that's nickel silver, and that's done on an ornamental lathe, so it's got a different carved pattern on the outside. All of these are available in my store. The store is called the Fox Valley Gallery of Wood, and it's in the Batavia shops, boardwalk shops of Batavia. And my partners and I got reinstated for the next season, which begins on Memorial Day and will go until the third week in December, every weekend, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. So that's my wood turning, and I'm busy doing that when I'm not taking care of all the animals.
That
Very
sounds
good.
great.
Of course, Bob and I are going to get a discount when we go out there.
Big
right?
discount,
Yeah,
absolutely.
big discount. We glossed over the fact that he is a veterinarian of how many years?
45.
45 years, and specializes in
Exotic pets only,
yeah.
which are non-dog and cat pets. They're not zoo animals. So, as an example, the other day we were doing a rescue for examining reptiles that had been confiscated from a hoarder of reptiles, and in our examination period of 3.5 hours, we went through 55 different reptiles. Big snakes, lizards, there was no. I think there might have been one turtle, but you know, it's an interesting experience for sure.
You know, at the end of our show, we have the closing credits, and if you get your pencil and scorecard ready, you can write down how to contact Rich Nye or Bob Considine. You may want to ask Bob for his autograph because one
no.
of these days he's going to be a famous TV star, I think.
Well,
But now, going into the last half of our show, actually it's less than a half of the show, we're going to show you our interview with the last man on the moon. I was so honored to be able to meet him and talk to him. And this book was on the New York Times bestseller list for 58 straight weeks. You can still get it Amazon.com, or maybe the larger booksellers have it. And I would heartily recommend you read The Last Man on the Moon. And here he is, U.S. astronaut, member of the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, Captain Eugene A. Cernan. We're going to introduce Captain Cernan right now, but I want to show everybody here the plaque that's going up. This will go, when we open our building, this will go in the conference center, and it's going to have a place of honor right here too. It's the Cernan Conference Center. And it shows on here, it says, I'll read it to you. Dedicated in honor of Captain Eugene A. Cernan, U.S. astronaut, Commander, Apollo 17, December 1972, the last man on the moon. He's a son of a Czech mother and a Slovak father. The 1963 NASA group. His missions were Gemini 9A in June 1966, Apollo 10 in May 1969, and Apollo 17 in December 1972. And we have one small plaque to go. I'd like to read this too. This is going to Captain Cernan. It says Chicagoland Czech American Community Center Award of Highest Honor, presented to Captain Eugene A. Cernan, U.S. astronaut, in recognition of exemplary lifetime service to country and community. Thank you. And here he is. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming. Believe it or not, I'm really overwhelmed to see all you folks here. I know you had something better to do than to come and see me, but I will. And I know you got a million questions. Unfortunately, we probably won't be able to answer them all here today. But I want you to know I am very proud of my Czech and my Slovak heritage. I was born an American. I'll always be an American, but my culture, of my family culture, goes back to both the Czech Republic and to Slovakia, and it's something I want you to know I'm extremely proud of. I've been back to Czech Republic on many occasions, and Slovakia. The first time was before the Velvet Revolution back in, I think it was probably 1974 or 75. And that was a very, very interesting trip for me because everyone in Prague, I remember specifically, knew who I was, but they could not acknowledge me at all. The folks in control of the country at that time wanted me to go back and visit with some of my family, and then when I got there, they wanted me to go to a big communist rally at that time, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm here to see my family," and they lived back there at that time almost as I remember growing up. I lived in Bellwood, Maywood, Broadview. Just like my mom, my aunts, my uncles, all lived as I grew up, the way I remember it. And this is a very familiar place. It's changed. But on my Bohemian side, all my mother's brothers and sisters all lived in Berwyn and Cicero and eventually Brookfield and Riverside. And my dad only had one brother, and he lived in southern Illinois. So I was really attached and knew my mother's Bohemian family more than I did my dad's. My dad's grandparents had a farm up in north central Wisconsin where I spent a great deal of my time. And of course, they lived up there like they lived in the old country, because my maternal grandparents and paternal grandparents, both sides, came over to Chicago around the turn of the century. So I'm second generation. Mom and Dad were both born here in Chicago, and I was born at St. Anthony Hospital, right? And well, I don't know exactly where it is, but that's where I was born. I went to Purdue. I graduated proviso. I went to Purdue. My dream as a kid, and I try and instill some of the same dreams I had in kids of today, to inspire them to do things they didn't think they could do. And I just wanted to fly airplanes off aircraft carriers. I grew up as a kid during World War II, and those anonymous heroes of their time, I watched them make airplanes do the impossible, the things they weren't supposed to do, and I said, I want to do that. And there was no space program at that time. I know some of the younger folks in the audience find that hard to believe, but Buck Rogers was about as close as we got to space. Graduated from Purdue in '56, went to Pensacola, Navy flight training, out to the Western Pacific, flew off aircraft carriers. My dream come true, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And not too much later, I got a call asking me if I wanted to volunteer for the space program, for the Apollo program. And, not only yes, but heck yes. And I had no idea where that would lead, because then a big selection process took place. And there were some couple thousand people in the process at that time, and I was selected in 1963 to be one of 14. The group just before us included Jim Lovell, Apollo 13, Neil Armstrong, Tom Stafford, Frank Borman, some of those guys, and we were 1 year after them. And even at that point in time, no one ever guaranteed you get a chance to fly in space. There were no rules in terms of what might come of the space program or whatever. And I think even at that point in my life, if someone would have said I'd have a chance to walk in space, go to the moon twice, and call the moon my home for 3 days of my life, they probably would have put me in a straitjacket. I really believe it. And let me just answer one other question that I get asked a lot. What's the thing you remember most about having gone to the moon? And it's to look back at the Earth. I cannot tell you how overpowering it is to look back at the beauty and the overwhelming impact that the Earth itself has on you. Because as you head out to the moon, in Earth orbit you don't see the Earth. You see it just slightly curved horizon. You head on out to the moon at 25,000 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the horizon closes in around upon itself, and you see something very strange and yet very familiar, because all of a sudden you realize out your window is being filled up with that spacecraft with the entirety of the Earth. And you can look from the turquoise blues of the Bahamas and the Caribbean across the east coast of the United States, the windswept plains, the mountains on the Rocky Mountains, into the deep dark blues of the Pacific, and you don't even have to turn your head or move your eyeballs. And the Earth grows smaller and smaller and smaller very quickly when you're heading out to the moon, until the point comes, and some of you may have seen Apollo 13, when you can literally cover the Earth up with something smaller than the palm of your hand, literally with the thumb. You can cover up your identity, what I call the identity with reality, with nothing bigger than the thumb on your hand. And something else happens. Something else is strange. Because as you head on out, North America and South America sort of disappear around the corner, and then comes up Asia and Europe, and then the entire continent of Africa comes completely into view. You are looking at the other side of the world. You're no longer going around it like in Earth orbit. You fly around the Earth, It's those meatballs, those liver balls. You fly around the earth every 90 minutes. You fly over a river or coastline, cross the ocean in 15 minutes. But you're still part of the earth. You're still only 150, 200 miles away. You might even get a glimpse of your own hometown if you're lucky. But when you head out to the moon, as I said, things do become different. And as you look back and watch that earth rotate on an axis you can't see that must be there, and it moves with logic and with purpose beyond your conception. The earth is surrounded by the blackest black. You're in daylight. This is a paradox on earth. You're in daylight. You're looking at the sunshine on the earth, and yet and everywhere else, and yet surrounding the earth is a three-dimensional blackness. I didn't say it was dark. I said blackness. And I don't know, I can't show it to you, and I don't know what to really call it, but my recollection is that it's the infinity of space, the infinity of time, the endlessness of everything. And I guess people call that infinity, but it's just overwhelming. And it's a three-dimensional blackness. You can look that far alongside the earth, and you can literally focus on that endlessness. And I can tell you it exists. I can't show it to you, but it's just because I saw it with my own eyes. And I had that experience on Apollo 10 when I went to the moon. And I came home after that, and I kept, it was just too beautiful to have happened by accident. There must be somebody bigger than you, some creator of this universe. I don't mean that to be a religious statement. You know, I'm Catholic. Most of us here probably are. We grew up in that culture. But above all religions, I think, and I accept anyone's way to worship their God, but is it truly, in my mind, a creator? And when I went back on Apollo 17, I challenged that thought. Only this time I had a chance to go all the way down to the moon. 10, we didn't land. And I was on the moon for 3 days. I came to the same conclusion that there must be something we don't understand, somebody bigger than the rest of us, a creator of this universe, a God, someone I choose to call God. And my way of getting there is through Jesus Christ. And I came home with the conclusion, after being on the moon, not only reinforcing my thoughts about the existence of a God, but the fact that I had been one of the few people in the history of mankind to have the opportunity to literally sit on God's front porch, looking back home at a small part of His creation, which includes this place we call home, this planet Earth. And I don't mind sharing those thoughts because that's a feeling, that's a memory that will live in my mind until the day I'm no longer on this planet, and maybe thereafter, I'm not sure. Now, thank you. I don't know what your timing is.
Well, we have about 20 minutes, and we can. I'm sure Captain Cernan will be happy to answer a couple of questions. He has a book, I think. I don't know if I mentioned that, The Last Man on the Moon. It was on the New York Times bestseller list. It's excellent. It's one of my favorite books now. And believe it or not, he left some initials on the moon in the dust. And I asked him about that. And then we'll ask a couple of questions, take a couple of questions from the audience. But what was your answer to the initials in the dust?
Well, that was my daughter, who was 3, 6, and 9 on my 3 respective flights. 9 on Apollo 17, and her name is Teresa Dawn Cernan. And I say somewhere up there, I know where they are, but someday someone will go up there, I expect, and where we lived for a while, and see the initials scribbled in the sand, Teresa Dawn Cernan, TDC. Now you want to hear something funny about that? There is a television program. I watch sports and news, but there's a television program many of you probably know. Is it called Modern Family or something? about 6 or 8 months ago, I got all these emails, and I didn't know what they were about. I'd never heard of Modern Family. It turns out, apparently on Modern Family, maybe somebody saw it, there was a father who was trying to impress his young daughter. And everywhere he went, he took her to the zoo was closed. He took her to get a malted milk and the machine broke. Took her to get a hamburger and the waitress was a flippin'. And everything he did, he wanted to develop, a father's communication with his 12-year-old daughter or something. And I watched this on YouTube afterwards. And he said, I just want to be like Gene Cernan. And his daughter said, who in the heck is Gene Cernan? Okay. And he says, he's the last man who walked on the moon. Big deal, right? And then she said, what did he do? He's the last man to walk on the moon. And he put his daughter's initials in a lunar surface. Apparently that still didn't impress his daughter. He says, and every father hates Gene Cernan because they can't do the same thing. I don't know,
I just want to say one more time a plug for this book, The Last Man on the Moon, by Eugene A. Cernan, Captain Eugene A. Cernan, who passed away. He was 82 when he passed away in 2017. But I will treasure my meeting him and the conversations we had and the experience. I'll treasure it for the rest of my life. And I don't know if anybody is going to experience the things that he did, but we are happy to have people like Gene Cernan as Americans, and Americans like these two guys too, great athletes who have done many, many more things in their lifetime. Any parting shots, Bob?
Thanks, Jim, again for having a great topic. We covered a lot again. Thank you.
Covered a lot of ground here tonight. Rich, any short?
I just make one comment that came to me when we were talking about stadiums. I remember a comment that Phil Wrigley, the original owner of Wrigley Field, had said, I want to build a place where families want to come out and enjoy the day and watch a game of baseball. Mm-hmm. And some of that's been lost because the cost of taking the family to the baseball game has been so horrendously inflated. That's the word I wanted, yes. So if they can do a sports stadium like this and still make it really practical to bring families out, I think that would be the best thing for it.
Well, I think we've given some hints today to the ownership of the Chicago Bears, Chicago Cubs, and maybe even the Chicago White Sox. And I have to say we've run out of time. That's all the time we've got for today. We'll see you next time. I'm Jim Kapsa.
Rich and I.
Bobby Considine.
And this has been Sports, Entertainment, People, and Places. See you next time.